everyone, it's Lisa here. In this tutorial, you'll learn how to use the templates for the Pattern Design Toolkit. This tutorial is for the Procreate version. You'll find the link to the other versions in the PDF guide included in the download. Before we dive into the templates, I just wanted to go over some tips and info that'll help you get the most out of this kit. If you've watched another version tutorial, you can skip ahead to how to use the template section as I cover the same info in the other videos. So the kit includes two of the most popular repeat styles, which are a half drop repeat and a grid repeat. A grid repeat means the pattern block or tile, which is the area that contains all your design elements, is duplicated along the same horizontal and vertical plane. Whereas a half drop repeat is repeated halfway down along the horizontal plane, as well as repeated vertically top and bottom. And I'm going to show you how to use both of these templates to create your own lovely pattern designs. Let's go over some of the basics of the framework of the templates. Each template includes shapes or elements that are grey, and these indicate where you should place your motifs. They're designed to help you create balanced and, in some cases, intricate patterns without you needing to fuss over where to place the motifs. And the dotted lines indicate the repeating elements. So when you're working on the edges of the repeat tile, be mindful of where those dotted line elements are, because these are your repeating elements. Perhaps you want them to overlap, but if you don't, make sure you don't draw into that dotted line area. Here's an example of grid repeating elements, and because the grid repeats horizontally, then also vertically, notice how the elements are along the same plane. So if motifs sit outside the pattern block, they will jut into the design on the opposite side. For the half drop, as mentioned, elements will repeat halfway down and halfway up, which can be quite confusing, but thankfully the templates do all the complicated maths for you by indicating exactly where those repeat elements will fall. And don't forget, it'll also repeat top and bottom. Regarding the designs, some are simple in nature, while others are a bit more complex, giving you a variety to play with. Have a look through the guide where you'll find more info and inspiration for creating with the different templates. The kit includes 70 color palettes. Use them as a starting point when choosing color for your design. I say starting point because you more than likely will need to tweak the colors to suit your specific design. Often we see a color combo in someone else's work that looks amazing, but this may not work in your design. But if you tweak the tints and the hues, this can make all the difference. Another approach is to use only a few colors from a palette to springboard your palette. In an example I'll be showing you later on, I started with a palette 7 colors A, but decided to only focus on these 4 colors. I then expanded on those hues by adding a brighter pink, a muted pink, and a darker blue. Now that you have an overview, let's dive into using the templates. I just want to mention up front that I recommend making a duplicate of your template each time you design. That way you will always have the original on hand in case you make any mistakes in the template you're using. I'll be starting with the half drop repeat template. And the first thing you want to do is come over to your layers panel and just have a look through the available layers and the templates included. I just wanted to point out you won't have ink or color because that is my design that I'll be using today. So you'll have the draw here layer all the way down to your background. And if I just turn those off and we have a look at our measurements. So the 2 documents included for Procreate will have different measurements. So this is the smaller one that I'm using at the moment. And you'll see my repeat tile will be cropped to 2000 by 2000. And the actual document size is 2.8 at the moment. So essentially we've created almost like a false artboard all the way around our repeat tile. So this is your guide. And that's going to be your final repeat tile that we're going to be cropping to. So turning those other layers back on and the pattern templates. So feel free to obviously, work your way through these and choose the template you want to work on. Once you've done that, go ahead and delete these, the ones that you aren't using, to free up your layers in Procreate, especially if you're using the larger canvas. So in this instance, I'm going to use the tossed branches. I know I have plenty of layers, so I'm not going to delete anything. So what you want to do is you want to start sketching on the Draw Here layer. And I've already gone ahead and drawn my own version of these branches. So that's my inking layer. And what I did was I was sure to follow the template guide. So it's all these gray areas I followed, and I was just aware of the dotted lines because these dotted lines are going to be the repeating elements. And with a half drop, as mentioned, your elements are going to be repeating halfway up and halfway down. They also repeat top and bottom. So if you wanted elements to overlap, then you would draw into those dotted line areas, so they're going to overlap when we repeat. Or if you don't want elements to overlap, just be mindful of where you are drawing your motifs and stay away from the dotted area if you don't want them to actually overlap. Okay, so I created my ink and I added some color. So now we're going to go ahead and create that repeat. So the first thing you want to do is duplicate your pattern tile, or you can just use the one that is available, but I've got lots of layers available, so I'm going to duplicate that. And then I'm just going to turn off the layers I don't need, and then I'm going to group these. So that's kind of like our master original design that we created. And now we need to duplicate this and actually repeat it in this area, that area, and that area, and of course top and bottom. So I'm going to start by duplicating 4 times. I'm just swiping left and hitting duplicate. Oh, so I have in fact reached my limit, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete these that I don't need. Okay, so turning off the layers we don't want. I want to make sure that I am working on, that snapping is on, and it's definitely set to snap to my guides. And now I'm just simply going to drag that group, and this block is going to be our guide to where it needs to snap. Sorry, I actually need to snap there in the middle. So we're going half of our design and we're going halfway down. So half across and halfway down. And I want to zoom in really close and make sure that it is in fact snapping. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that white background that I don't need. And if you start running out of layers, go ahead and flatten that. And just working on the next group, I'm bringing it halfway across and halfway down, zooming in really close, making sure that it has in fact snapped, and deleting the one I don't need. And I'm going to do the same for this. This time I'm going halfway up and halfway across. So this one is a little bit more tricky because we have a repeat element kind of hanging over that that square. So what I want to do is turn off this layer so that I can see that white block much better. And I want to make sure that we are in fact exactly right. It looks pretty good. And I just want to turn that off. And these are looking pretty good, so I'm going to flatten them. And then I'm going to duplicate my original again. And this time we're going top right. Oops, I just want to turn that off. And the reason why I'm turning that off, I want to see that white block much better. So using that white pattern tile is essentially giving me my guide. And now, as you can recall, we need to repeat top and bottom. But having a look closer, this actually doesn't bleed over my pattern tile. So it looks like I only need to repeat these elements over here. So coming back to my original group, I'm duplicating that and turning that one off so I can see the white. And I'm just going to move that up and zoom in really close. We really want to be accurate. It's very important. Otherwise you will see, that looks pretty good. Otherwise you will see, you know, a line running across your repeat. Turn the original one back on. Okay, so now we need to test our repeat. And I've realized that I'm actually working on the larger canvas. So the measurements that I need to be aware of is the 4000 by 4000 pixels, and my document size is the 5600. So if we look at that 4000 measurement, it would be our repeating tile. Just turning my design back on. So the quickest way you can test your repeat is to make a duplicate of your document, which I'm going to do. So I've got my original. I'm not going to destroy that when I test my pattern. And now we're going to crop to the size that we need. So coming over to our actions, crop and resize. So if you can recall, we need to enter 4000 pixels, which is our repeating tile. Make sure that it's 4000 pixels. And then I want snapping on, because I would like to snap to that grid, that guide that we have. And once I'm happy, I'm going to hit done. And then what I want to do is I want to flatten my design so that I can actually test it. And then I'm going to do some duplication and resize. I still have my snapping on. So I duplicated 4 times. Oops, because I want to resize it down perfectly. And just turn off my guides and have a look. That looks pretty good. So there we have a perfect repeat in half drop. So now that you have an idea of how to use the half drop, we're going to move on to the grid repeat. So for the grid repeat, I am using the smaller one. So be sure that you don't make the mistake that I did, which thinking that you're using the smaller template, and in fact you're using the larger one, because those measurements are quite important when it comes to cropping. And if I open the layers panel, you'll see it's very similar to the half drop. You've got your draw hair layer, which is above your pattern templates, all your pattern templates that are available. And then obviously we want to, you know, just work our way through and choose the one we want to work on. I'm going to stick to this one. And this one is the dense floral. And then we have our pattern tile. So this is our kind of master tile area that we're going to be using to create our repeat. And we have our measurements. So remember, we're using the standard size. So that's the measurement I need to focus on. Okay, so I went ahead and, let me just turn that off. I went ahead and sketched out some flowers, and I made sure to follow the gray areas as my guide. And when I came closer to the dotted areas, which are the repeating elements, I was just aware not to go too close to them. And then if we have a look at this element here, which is our repeat of this one. So obviously I've gone slightly beyond you know, that element, so it's probably going to overlap over here, but because it's kind of like a toss design, it doesn't matter. And the same for this side. If you have a look here, this element is probably going to jut into that flower, and again, I don't mind. And yeah, so you just want to be aware of that repeat and where they fall and what they overlap. And then I added some color, and then I think I want to use a different color for my background. So just coming over to a pinky color, I'm just going to drag and drop. And let's duplicate that. So I should have enough layers in this document because it's the smaller file. So I'm not going to delete any of the pattern templates and just group that. So that's my original design, that's my master design. I'm going to keep coming back to that to make my duplicates for my repeating tile. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that 4 times. So if you can recall, with the grid repeat, we are repeating along the horizontal and also the vertical. And you need to also bear in mind that if there's a corner element, it'll actually repeat in all 4 corners. Okay, so let's turn off the layers we don't want. And I'm going to be working on that first repeating layer. Again, I have snapping on, and I'm just going to take that across. I just want to turn off my original pattern tile and then zoom in really tight so we can see we are slightly off, and it's super important that we aren't. Oops. So we just want to, and if you're having problems, if you're having problems getting that to move, you can take snapping off and then just eyeball that. Sometimes it jumps around. And I'm going to delete that background because we don't need it, and then move on to the next one. So moving across. And then I want to zoom in really close. Okay, so the snapping is behaving a little bit weirdly. It's obviously using the floral elements to snap, but that's not a problem. I'm just going to turn that off for now and just very carefully eyeball that. And we want to be as precise as we can. So I move on to the next layer, and I'm zooming in really tight. That looks pretty good. Deleting that background that I don't need. And then working on the next one all the way down. Just making sure that we're on that guide. Turning my original back on. And now I'm going to make sure that we don't have any weird little corner elements that haven't repeated. So that looks pretty good. I'm just inspecting my work, making sure that there isn't anything that I've missed. So if we had a corner element, what you would need to do is duplicate your original again, and then just bring it down to this corner. And the same for that, you would need to duplicate that and bring it down to this corner. So you want to make sure that all the corners and all the edges are duplicating, and you have all your motifs running around the edges. And the best way to do that is to actually double check the repeat, which is what we're going to do now. And as we did with the half drop, we're going to duplicate this document. And then I'm going to crop it. If you can recall, we are working 2000 by 2000. And 2000. I suppose I could just link that. And I want to snap my crop to that grid area. And let's flatten everything. And duplicate that. We only need 4 times. And not to lock it. Oh, I don't have snapping on. and turn off my guide and have a real close look. I think that looks pretty good. I don't see any sort of lines. I don't see motifs that have been cut off. Yeah, all looks good. I'm happy with that. I hope that gives you a good overview on how to use the templates, and I can't wait to see what you create. Wishing you many happy hours of designing. Thanks for watching and happy creating!